Behind the black suit and the deadly drawl lay a cast of actors we thought we knew. But what really happened after the cameras stopped rolling on Have Gun, Will Travel? Tonight, we reveal the shocking transformations and the bittersweet legacies of your favorite Western stars. One cast member's secret life will leave you speechless. Join us as we bridge the gap between 1957 and the present day. Richard Boone as Paladin. Born on June 18, 1917, the Los Angeles native first brought Paladin to life on the hit Western series Have Gun, Will Travel in 1957. At the age of 40, Boone's portrayal of the cultured, chess-playing gentleman gunfighter who operated out of San Francisco's Hotel Carlton became a massive television sensation. Paladin was a unique Western hero, quoting Shakespeare, enjoying fine cigars and solving disputes with intellect as much as a quick draw. The character's iconic business card and Boone's commanding presence turned Paladin into a cultural phenomenon, offering a prime-time depiction of a sophisticated gunslinger that remains one of the defining figures of the golden age of television. Despite playing a highly refined, immaculate, and disciplined intellectual on screen, Richard Boone was famously rugged, rough around the edges, and struggled with severe alcoholism. His real-life gruffness heavily contrasted with Paladin's polished elegance, a dichotomy that made his nuanced performance all the more impressive. Following the massive success of the show, his career was marked by the struggle of being typecast as a Western tough guy, which drove him to fiercely prove his versatility. He poured his creative energy into The Richard Boone Show, an ambitious repertory anthology series that he hosted and starred in. However, despite critical acclaim and multiple Emmy nominations, the show failed to find a steady audience and was canceled after just one season, a disheartening professional sting that left him deeply disillusioned with the network television industry. Richard Boone continued to work in film and television for decades, eventually moving to Hawaii and frequently taking on memorable supporting villain roles alongside stars like John Wayne in movies such as The Shootist and Big Jake. He also returned to television to star as an aging frontier detective in the short-lived 1970s series Heck Ramsey. His final years were marred by declining health due to his lifelong habits of heavy smoking and drinking. Boone passed away at his home in St. Augustine, Florida on January 10, 1981, at the age of 63 from complications related to throat cancer and pneumonia. His death was followed by a quiet and fitting tribute, as his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of his beloved Hawaii, bringing his gritty but legendary journey to a close. Charles Bronson as Ben Jalisco. Born on November 3, 1921, in the coal mining town of Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania, the actor, originally known as Charles Buczynski, brought his formidable presence to the hit 1957 Western series Have Gun, Will Travel. At the age of 40, Bronson's portrayal of Ben Jalisco, a ruthless escaped convict and former bounty hunter who hunted men like animals, left a lasting mark on television audiences. His chilling and physically imposing performance created one of the most memorable adversaries for the show's hero Paladin, and perfectly showcased the gritty, relentless toughness that would ultimately become his cinematic trademark. Despite the violent, cold-blooded killers he frequently played and the ruthless vigilantes he would later become famous for, Charles Bronson was remarkably different from his characters. In reality, he was a soft-spoken, intensely private and reserved man who preferred painting and quietly tending to horses on his Vermont farm over attending Hollywood social events. Getting to the top was a grueling journey. Raised in extreme poverty, he worked in the coal mines before World War II and spent his early acting career struggling against being heavily typecast. For over a decade, his rugged granite features relegated him to playing nameless henchmen, convicts, and villains, forcing him to eventually leave America to find his first major leading man success in Europe, before Hollywood fully recognized his star power. In his later years, Bronson became an international box office superstar, defining the action genre with films like The Great Escape, The Dirty Dozen, and the Death Wish franchise. His personal life was marked by a deep devotion to his second wife and frequent co-star Jill Ireland. Her tragic death from breast cancer in 1990 left him profoundly devastated, though he continued to work sparingly before retiring in the late 1990s and marrying Kim Weeks. Charles Bronson passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on August 30th, 2003, at the age of 81 from pneumonia and respiratory failure complicated by Alzheimer's disease. His passing was mourned globally, marking the end of an era for classic action cinema and cementing his legacy as one of the screen's ultimate stoic anti-heroes. Kam Tong is Hey Boy. Born on December 18, 1906. The San Francisco native first brought Hey Boy to life on the highly rated CBS Western Have Gun, Will Travel in 1957. At the age of 50, Tong's portrayal of the resourceful and loyal bellhop at the Hotel Carlton became a cultural touchstone, offering a prime-time depiction of an Asian American character that was highly visible and deeply competent. For 6 seasons, his dignified presence and reliable assistance to the gunfighter Paladin defined a character that remains a notable milestone for minority representation in a genre overwhelmingly dominated by white leads. Despite the character's subservient, deferential, and sometimes comic nature, Kam Tong was an authoritative, worldly, and highly educated individual, standing in stark contrast to Hey Boy. This contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. Prior to acting, he was a distinguished World War II veteran who had commanded an intelligence unit in the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, in Japanese-occupied China. His career was also marked by the struggle of being typecast, which severely limited his opportunities and frequently confined him to playing stereotypical Asian servants. Despite appearing in over 100 episodes of Have Gun, Will Travel, he was denied a regular featured credit. He attempted to break out of this mold by leaving the show in 1960 to star in Mr. Garland, but the show's swift cancellation brought a professional sting, forcing him to return to his typecast role as Hey Boy. Kam Tong continued to work in television and film throughout the 1960s, maintaining a private, personal life with his wife Betty and their 2 children. He showcased his versatility as Dr. Lee in the 1961 musical film Flower Drum Song and actively involved himself in raising awareness about gun violence. Throughout the decade, he took on supporting roles in shows like The Man from UNCLE and I Spy, with his final credited performance in the 1969 thriller The Mad Room. Tong passed away at his home in Costa Mesa, California on November 8, 1969, at the age of 62 from undisclosed causes. His death marked the quiet end of a resilient career, and he was subsequently interred in Corona del Mar, leaving behind a lasting legacy as an Asian American trailblazer in early Hollywood. Vincent Price as Charles Matthews. Born on May 27, 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri, the distinguished actor stepped into the boots of traveling Shakespearean actor Charles Matthews on the acclaimed Western series Have Gun, Will Travel. At the age of 47, Price's portrayal of the refined yet delightfully hammy theatrical performer brought a unique blend of high culture and comedic relief to the rugged frontier setting. In the memorable 1958 episode The Moor's Revenge, his character successfully navigated a rough-and-tumble cow town by performing Othello, proving that classical art could captivate even the rowdiest of cowboy audiences. This acclaimed guest appearance showcased Price's remarkable versatility, leaving a lasting cultural impact by highlighting his classical stage-trained roots before he became almost entirely synonymous with the horror genre. While Charles Matthews was an extroverted and slightly pompous showman who confidently brought theater to the Wild West, Vincent Price was in reality a deeply sophisticated, gentle, and multifaceted intellectual. The contrast between the eccentric stage performer he played and his actual persona was stark. Price was a Yale-educated art historian, an avid art collector, and a celebrated gourmet chef, rather than just a boisterous dramatist. Professionally, Price faced the very real and enduring struggle of intense typecasting. Despite his classical theater training and early success as a versatile character actor in traditional dramas, his mid to late career was overwhelmingly defined by his iconic horror performances. This pigeonholing often made it difficult for him to be considered for the serious, non-genre dramatic roles he had once cherished, inextricably binding him to the macabre for the remainder of his long career. Vincent Price embraced his status as a cinematic icon while continuing to pursue his off-screen passions, publishing successful cookbooks and lecturing extensively on fine art. He remained active in the entertainment industry for decades, delivering late-career triumphs, such as portraying the gentle inventor in Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands, and providing the chilling voiceover for Michael Jackson's Thriller. He was married 3 times, had 2 children, and maintained a private life deeply enriched by culture and philanthropy. Price passed away at his home in Los Angeles, California on October 25, 1993, at the age of 82 from lung cancer and emphysema. His death marked the loss of one of cinema's true Renaissance men. Following his cremation, his ashes were famously scattered off the coast of Point Dume in Malibu, California, along with his favorite gardening hat. In the notable aftermath of his passing, his estate and the East Los Angeles College's Vincent Price Art Museum ensured his vast contributions to the arts lived on, cementing a cultural and philanthropic legacy that remains universally celebrated as of 2026. James Coburn as Jack Harvey/Bill Sledge. Born on August 31, 1928, in Laurel, Nebraska, the ruggedly handsome actor stepped into the gritty world of the hit Western series Have Gun, Will Travel. At the age of 31, Coburn's portrayal of various characters, most notably the tragic Jack Harvey in the episode One Came Back, and the formidable gunfighter Bill Sledge in The Gladiators, added immense depth and tension to the acclaimed show. While the series primarily centered around the iconic mercenary Paladin, memorable guest stars like Coburn were crucial to its success. His commanding screen presence helped cement the program as a top-rated television staple, showcasing the raw, brooding magnetism that would soon propel him to international stardom in cinematic classics like The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. Despite frequently being typecast as a hardened brawler, a dangerous gunslinger, or an untouchable cool guy, James Coburn's real personality stood in stark contrast to his tough guy image. Off-screen, he was a calm, gentle, and deeply thoughtful man with a profound interest in Eastern philosophy and martial arts. He famously became a close friend and student of Bruce Lee, eventually serving as a pallbearer at Lee's funeral. Beyond the struggle of navigating Hollywood typecasting, his greatest professional hardship was a severe decade-long battle with rheumatoid arthritis that began in the late 1970s. The debilitating condition left his hands deformed and caused him such immense physical pain that he was essentially forced to halt his acting career for much of the 1980s. After finding relief through alternative holistic treatments, Coburn experienced a triumphant career renaissance in his later years. This comeback culminated in a long-overdue Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his powerful role in the 1997 film Affliction. He shared a deep bond and a love for music with his second wife, Paula Murad, whom he married in 1993. James Coburn passed away on November 18, 2002, at the age of 74 from a massive heart attack at his home in Beverly Hills. He died peacefully in his wife's arms while they were listening to music together. His legacy continues through the James and Paula Coburn Foundation, which supports the arts and medical research, ensuring his influence remains as enduring as his legendary filmography. June Lockhart as Dr. Phyllis Thackeray. Born on June 25, 1925, the New York City native first brought Dr. Phyllis Thackeray to life during the first season of the classic Western series Have Gun, Will Travel in 1957. At the age of 32, Lockhart's portrayal of a capable and highly educated female physician in the rugged Old West broke the mold for female television characters of the era. Her performance offered a rare primetime depiction of a pioneering woman in science holding her own alongside the formidable Paladin, leaving a culturally significant mark on a genre that was usually dominated by damsels in distress. Despite the character's deeply serious and strictly professional demeanor, June Lockhart was an upbeat, bubbly, and remarkably progressive individual whose real-life persona was a striking contrast to her reserved on-screen roles. A passionate fan of rock music who kept a photo of David Bowie in her wallet and frequented Hollywood nightclubs with her younger co-stars, she possessed a vibrant, rebellious spirit, far removed from the earnest frontier doctor. Professionally, her career was marked by the persistent struggle of being typecast. After experiencing difficulty finding substantial leading parts in early feature films, she pivoted almost entirely to television, only to find herself permanently pigeonholed as the quintessential wholesome mother on shows like Lassie and Lost in Space. She felt the creative sting of these limiting roles, famously lamenting that playing a completely sexless country wife for 6 years on Lassie meant she was hardly ever allowed to even kiss her on-screen husband, a frustrating professional restriction despite her immense TV success. June Lockhart continued to work steadily in television and film for decades, appearing in everything from Petticoat Junction to modern hits like Grey's Anatomy style, while raising her 2 daughters. Outside of acting, she became a devoted NASA advocate and informal spokesperson, attending numerous space launches and earning an Exceptional Public Achievement Medal from the agency in 2013. She lived a remarkably long and active life, staying culturally engaged and reading the news daily up until her final days. Lockhart passed away in her sleep at her home in Santa Monica, California, on October 23, 2025, at the age of 100 from natural causes. Her death was widely mourned by fans and the scientific community alike, with tributes celebrating her as a television icon and one of the last beloved surviving actors from the golden age of Hollywood. Lee Van Cleef as Goliath/Coburn. Born on January 9, 1925 in Somerville, New Jersey, the actor brought his distinctively sharp features and piercing eyes to television screens in Have Gun, Will Travel, starting in 1957. At the age of 32, Van Cleef's portrayal of multiple menacing outlaws, most notably Goliath, in the episode The Sun Also Rises, and Coburn in Face of a Shadow, cemented his reputation as one of the Western genre's premier heavies. His characters often served as the perfect, ruthless, steely-eyed foils to the show's hero Paladin, leaving a lasting cultural impact that helped define the archetype of the cold, calculating villain in American television. Despite the intimidating and ruthless nature of the criminals, he repeatedly played Lee Van Cleef was known off-camera as a quiet, reflective man and a talented painter, a stark contrast to his fearsome on-screen persona. However, his career was fraught with professional and personal hardships. He was heavily typecast as a minor antagonist and struggled for a decade to break out of the mold of the expendable bad guy. His difficulties finding steady, substantial work were compounded by a devastating car accident in 1958 that shattered his knee, leading doctors to doubt he would ever ride a horse again and nearly forcing him to abandon acting entirely. During this agonizing recovery period, he briefly turned to freelance painting and interior decorating to make ends meet. Fortunately, his career experienced a legendary resurgence in the mid-1960s when Italian director Sergio Leone cast him in the iconic spaghetti westerns For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, catapulting him to international stardom as The Bad. He spent his later years enjoying immense popularity in Europe and America, eventually leading the 1984 television series The Master. Lee Van Cleef passed away on December 16, 1989, at the age of 64 in Oxnard, California, from a massive heart attack. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, where his gravestone fittingly honors his cinematic legacy with the memorable inscription, Best of the Bad. Lisa Liu as Hey Girl. Born on January 19, 1927 in Beijing, China, the highly trained and multi-talented actress brought her elegant presence to American television in the hit Western series Have Gun, Will Travel. At the age of 33, Liu stepped into the role of Hey Girl, temporarily filling the void left by actor Kam Tong's Hey Boy. Her portrayal of the intelligent and observant San Francisco hotel messenger who regularly delivered the latest job to the hired gun Paladin became a memorable touchstone of the show's 4th season. Though her screen time was relatively brief, Liu brought a quiet dignity, refined English, and sharp wit to the screen, providing a significant and graceful representation of an Asian character during an era when such prime-time television appearances were exceedingly rare. Despite the relatively subservient and mildly flirtatious nature of the Hey Girl character, Lisa Liu was in reality a highly educated and deeply serious artist who had trained in traditional Chinese opera and studied at universities in both Shanghai and Hawaii. This contrast highlighted the restrictive environment of Hollywood at the time. Although she was highly respected by directors and earned the nickname One Take Lisa for her flawless efficiency on set, she found playing culturally limited characters to be a stifling challenge. Her career in America was marked by the struggle of being typecast into small, often stereotypical exotic roles that failed to utilize her vast dramatic range. Frustrated by the glass ceiling for Asian American actresses and the difficulty of finding substantive work in Western television after her initial run of shows, she boldly shifted her focus to Asian cinema in the late 1960s to seek out the complex leading roles she truly deserved. That professional pivot transformed her into an international cinematic icon, leading to 3 Golden Horse Awards and her defining role as Empress Dowager Cixi in both The Empress Dowager, 1975, and the 1987 Oscar-winning epic The Last Emperor. In her personal life, she remained deeply devoted to her family. She was married to Shelling Huang until his death in 1996, and together they had 3 children, including composer Lucia Huang. Liu also became a beloved matriarch to modern Hollywood audiences through her powerful performances in blockbuster films like The Joy Luck Club, 1993, and Crazy Rich Asians, 2018, and she continued acting well into her 90s in projects like the Hulu series Death and Other Details, 2024. At the age of 99, she is celebrated as a living legend of world cinema, holding the unique distinction of being the only person to be a voting member of the Academy Awards, Golden Globes, Emmys, and SAG, and having recently made history in 2025 as the oldest person ever to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Denver Pyle as Colonel Celine/Advent. Born on May 11, 1920 in Bethune, Colorado, the versatile actor brought his rugged authenticity to television screens on Have Gun, Will Travel during its early run. At the age of 37, Pyle's portrayal of various characters, most notably Colonel Celine in the episode The Return of Dr. Thackeray and Advent in Birds of a Feather, helped anchor the gritty realism of the classic Western series. His commanding screen presence and ability to embody the archetypes of the Old West, from hardened soldiers to grizzled frontiersmen, made him an indispensable asset to the show's weekly morality plays, establishing him as a highly dependable character actor during the golden age of television westerns. Despite frequently playing rough, uneducated country types or ruthless antagonists, Denver Pyle was a highly sophisticated, deeply kind, and charitable man in real life. Peers described him as a gentle soul, who was the complete opposite of his gruff on-screen personas. However, his career was heavily marked by the struggle of being typecast into Western and rural roles. This made it difficult for him to secure parts outside of that specific niche, limiting his ability to showcase his full dramatic range. As the dominance of the television Western began to fade in the late 1960s, he faced the professional hardship of adapting to a shifting industry, eventually leaning into his country image to maintain his legendary status as a household name. Pyle achieved enduring success by embracing his typecasting, most famously as the eccentric Briscoe Darling on The Andy Griffith Show, and later as the beloved patriarch Uncle Jesse on The Dukes of Hazzard. Off-screen, he was a dedicated philanthropist, notably sponsoring a prominent charity fishing tournament for children. He also found success behind the camera as a television director. Denver Pyle passed away on December 25, 1997, at the age of 77, following a battle with lung cancer. Just weeks before his death, he fulfilled a lifelong dream by receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was laid to rest in an unmarked grave at the Foreston Cemetery in Texas, leaving behind a rich legacy as one of the most recognizable and beloved character actors in television history. Strother Martin as various characters. Born on March 26, 1919 in Kokomo, Indiana, the distinctive character actor first brought his unique screen presence to Have Gun, Will Travel in 1957. At the age of 38, Martin began portraying various quirky, often unscrupulous characters throughout the acclaimed Western series. His performances left a lasting impression, adding authentic texture and grit to the show. By embodying a menagerie of eccentric frontiersmen and grizzled oddballs, he became a memorable part of the classic television landscape, helping to define the rugged realism of 1950s Westerns and elevating every scene he stepped into. Despite frequently portraying sweaty, weaselly villains, uneducated country bumpkins, or what was affectionately dubbed prairie scum, Strother Martin was the polar opposite off-screen. In reality, he was a highly educated, gentle, and articulate man who had been a national springboard diving champion and instructor at the University of Michigan. This stark contrast was a significant part of his professional journey. Because he was so remarkably convincing as eccentric outlaws, his career was marked by the intense struggle of being heavily typecast. For years, he found it incredibly difficult to secure roles outside of the Western genre or beyond eccentric sidekick parts, having to navigate a Hollywood machine that constantly sought to pigeonhole his immense talents. Strother Martin continued to work extensively in film and television, eventually cementing his legacy in cinema history. He achieved cinematic immortality as the brutal prison captain in the 1967 film Cool Hand Luke, delivering the iconic line, "What we've got here is failure to communicate." He also formed a close working relationship with director Sam Peckinpah, appearing in classics like The Wild Bunch, and later starred alongside Paul Newman in the 1977 sports comedy Slapshot. Off-screen, he enjoyed a quiet life and a long, stable marriage to his wife, Helen. Strother Martin passed away at a hospital in Thousand Oaks, California, on August 1, 1980, at the age of 61 from a fatal heart attack. Following his sudden death, his widow honored his wishes by having his cremated remains scattered into the Pacific Ocean, providing a peaceful final resting place for one of Hollywood's most unforgettable character actors. Roy Barcroft as Sheriff Swink. Born Howard Harold Ravenscroft on September 7, 1902 in the rural farming community of Crab Orchard, Nebraska, the prolific actor first stepped into the boots of Sheriff Swink on the hit television series Have Gun, Will Travel in 1957. At the age of 55, Barcroft's portrayal of the hardened and morally conflicted local lawman brought a gritty authenticity to the screen. His performance contributed significantly to the immense success and cultural impact of the series, which was celebrated for bringing sophisticated, complex storytelling to the traditional Western genre and cemented Barcroft's status as one of the most recognizable faces of the American frontier on television. Despite building an iconic career out of playing menacing outlaws, ruthless heavies, and tough sheriffs, Roy Barcroft was intensely affable and considered the polar opposite of his rugged characters. Behind the scenes, he was renowned for his jovial, kind-hearted nature, with co-stars affectionately describing him as a practical joker and the biggest, nicest old St. Bernard. This stark contrast was a major part of his professional journey. He faced severe typecasting as Republic Pictures' #1 bad guy, which made it incredibly difficult for him to break out of the villain mold. When the era of theatrical B-westerns and cliffhanger serials dried up in the 1950s, Barcroft faced the professional hardship of a changing industry, forcing him to scramble for television guest spots to find work, while also battling weight gain and declining health. Barcroft continued to work steadily in television and feature films throughout his later years, eventually growing a bushy white beard to play more sympathetic grandfatherly roles in popular series like Spin and Marty and Bonanza. He remained married to his wife Vera and acted right up to the end of his life, with his final performance coming as a saloon keeper in the 1970 Lee Marvin Western Monty Walsh. Roy Barcroft passed away at the Motion Picture Country Hospital in Woodland Hills, California, on November 28, 1969, at the age of 67, following a battle with kidney cancer. His death was followed by a final act of the quiet generosity that defined his off-screen life. His body was donated to medical science, leaving behind a monumental legacy of nearly 400 film and television appearances. Edward Faulkner as Ben. Born on February 29, 1932 in Lexington, Kentucky, the former Air Force fighter pilot first brought his commanding presence to television on the 1957 classic Western series, Have Gun, Will Travel. At the age of 26, Faulkner took on the role of Ben, contributing a rugged, imposing energy to the screen. His portrayal of gritty, frontier-hardened men perfectly complemented the sophisticated persona of the show's lead Paladin. The hit CBS series became a cultural touchstone that redefined the television Western by introducing complex moral dilemmas, and Faulkner's reliable presence helped ground the show's high-stakes, dust-swept conflicts, cementing it as one of the era's most significant and influential primetime programs. Despite his frequent casting as a hardened henchman and adversarial bad guy, Edward Faulkner was described by those who knew him as the polar opposite of his rough, on-screen characters. Off-screen, he was a deeply warm, gentle family man with a college degree and a lifelong passion for magic, constantly delighting his friends and loved ones with sleight-of-hand illusions. This contrast defined his professional journey. He found himself heavily typecast within the Western genre due to his imposing 6'3" frame, humorously noting in later years that he never won a fight on screen. As the golden age of television Westerns faded, the shifting Hollywood landscape made it increasingly difficult for him to find steady, diverse work, eventually prompting him to step away from acting to seek a more reliable living. Edward Faulkner left full-time acting in the mid-1970s to embark on a successful corporate career, working as an executive in the marine transportation industry and later in hotel management. He maintained a deeply grounded personal life, enjoying a nearly 60-year marriage to his high school sweetheart Barbara, until her passing in 2013 and raising 4 children. Although he retired from the screen, he occasionally attended Western film festivals and remained a beloved figure among fans of his work, alongside icons like John Wayne and Elvis Presley. Faulkner passed away from natural causes at a healthcare facility in Vista, California, on August 26, 2025, at the age of 93. Moving into 2026, his recent passing marked the end of an era for classic television enthusiasts, prompting a wave of heartfelt tributes that celebrated his extensive cinematic legacy and his incredibly kind heart. Seeing the march of time reflected in the stars we once admired reminds us just how precious those golden years of television truly were. The cast of Have Gun, Will Travel brought a unique grit and elegance to our living rooms that defined an entire generation of Westerns. If seeing these legends again brought a smile to your face, please hit that like button. We would love to hear which specific episode still resonates with you after all these decades.